everyone, and welcome to the Monday, April 3rd, 2023 Town of Rhinebeck Planning meeting. I don't believe there are any changes to the agenda this evening, is that correct? So the posted agenda will stand as it was noticed. You've received Jim's meeting notes. I trust you had a chance to look at them.
I move we accept them.
Thank you. May I have a second, please? All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? You have the draft March 20th minutes. You all had a chance to look at those. Any corrections, comments? No.
I would just like to add the comment that as a board member, I appreciate the input of our planner and the degree of professionalism that he lends to this board. And I know that he's had to endure some disparaging comments, which I think were totally out of line. And I just want to thank him again for all of the fine work that he does to support this town.
Here, here. Anything else?
Second
All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you.
I move we accept the minutes.
Thank you. I have a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Any correspondence and announcements? Okay. All right, then I think we can move right into new applications. The only new application before us this evening is wireless net Verizon 3866 Route 9G, site plan and special use permit. Is there anyone here from Wireless Edge? Jim, maybe you want to update the board on what's been going on with that? And maybe they'll show up, if not, we'll move on.
So the planning board has accepted the application. We did get the review on this at a prior meeting. Conversations have been going on with both the visualization specialist and the RF specialist. They have been brought on board, so they are now involved and engaged. And the visualization specialist has actually reached out to the applicant to start that discussion. When was the balloon test? I don't even know. I just want-
Right, yeah.
They have scheduled the balloon test. Just have to find it now.
Is that for yours?
Saturday, April 8th. They're planning to do a balloon test, utilizing a crane and a balloon on the top. And it will be, let's see, they're planning on 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. that day. So we'll obviously provide more information as we get it, letting everyone know where to go, what to look at, what they're planning to do. But that's the schedule right now, is to do that test on April 8th in the morning.
And we did discuss with George James whether or not there was any desirability in letting the public know that the balloon test was going on. Or if we were to do so, how we would make that information available. Michael, do you know if we've done that before?
I don't know if we have, I don't think it can hurt people to know why is there a balloon up there. So I
On top of the
think that
crane.
we can. Perhaps a Chinese, spy balloon, but perhaps not. So I think people would probably like to know, or at least have a way to call the town hall and say, what is it? So if there's any, we can put it on the town website, anything like that that we can do, I think is helpful.
Gretchen, can you speak with Joan and see how we can either get it up on planning board site or somewhere else so that the public's aware of it? Because it would might be helpful and useful if people do see it, let us know that they've seen it.
And if they thought about seeing it at the height that allegedly it's going to be shown, that would be good information for us to have.
Yeah, I had actually asked the visualization specialist if anyone's ever put a sign out at the road to say something like cell phone or cell tower balloon test in progress or something like that, so people can see it as they drive by. He said he wasn't aware that that was a common request, but it was something I thought might make sense because 9G is a heavily traveled road. If the board thinks that makes sense, I can go back and make that request.
I think it's
with
a
your
great
support.
idea. I think a lot of it gives people an opportunity to speak to it.
Yeah. May not be precedent for it, but we can ask. It doesn't have to ask if you'd
You
like
got to
to.
start somewhere.
Well, I don't think precedent is necessary in this case. I mean, it's not horrendously expensive, and it is going to be something that people coming across the bridge.
It's supposed to be this comment on what people think of the potential height of this tower, as, evidenced by this balloon.
So if you agree, I can go back to the applicant and ask for them to put out a sign if they want.
Okay, and you'll still talk to Joan about getting them, all right, that's fine. Anything else regarding that? Any planning board members' comments or questions? I did send you some information from George James the
I
other
thought
day
that
for you to
was
look
very
at.
helpful. That was really good.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Good. Okay.
Do we expect to meet with George James as a board, or what will happen?
We did, go ahead, Jim. We did talk about that, and John Lyons is in favor of George being able to present to us. Right now, he's sent out, I think, an email earlier today, we got a copy of it earlier today, about the things that he's sharing with wireless Verizon. So, yes, and Ron Grafe is the RF specialist that we'll be talking to as well.
Great.
Okay, since it is not yet 6:15, Jim, why don't we go ahead with the ZBA referrals?
Okay, the first ZBA referrals for Northside Auto, located on Route 9, they are before the ZBA for variances to continue using, essentially replacing kind, an existing freestanding sign. There have been signs, this sign has been there, and there has been a sign on the building for years, but the replacement of these elements don't meet the current sign code requirements in section 12537, and thus variances are required for square footage, height, and setbacks. The variances that they requested from the ZBA are 11.7 square foot variance for total sign area, which is proposed to be 41.7 square feet, and only 30 square feet is permitted. A 7-foot variance for the height of the freestanding sign. The maximum height for freestanding sign in the code right now is permitted to be 6 feet. The applicant is proposing to utilize the existing sign, which is 13 feet high. They're looking for setback variance of 2.8 feet for the location of the sign as it relates to the road. The current code requires signs to be located no closer than 20 feet to a property line, not to the road. And then a variance for total square footage of the freestanding sign of 11 square feet. The variances seem right to me. I just had two questions. One that I think we passed back to the ZBA, and that I wasn't sure that the freestanding sign square footage calculation was right. By my calculation provided, the existing double-sided sign replaced in kind would have an area of 34.98 square feet, which is over by 22.98, not by 11.7. So the variance would be 22.98 square feet instead of 11.7 square feet. It's a question I have. It's what I found, but I'd send that back as a comment to the ZBA to confirm the number to make sure we get it right. Regardless, it is for replacement in kind, regardless of the square footage of the sign. I did want to note, the planning board did review this previously when they came before us, and they had a lot more issues with the proposal. You didn't have any issues with the proposed replacement wall sign, as it was the only sign proposed at that time to be located on the property. It appeared to meet the codes, and is generally consistent with other signs along the corridor. The application states the wall sign is 24 square feet, which leaves only 6 square feet for the road sign, which is too small, which is why they're making the variances. So I'm guessing they're going ahead with the wall sign, and the variance is now falling on the second sign that they have on site. Again, they're both essentially replacing what exists. So I offered two referral responses for your consideration. One is essentially the standard response. There are no significant planning or environmental concerns, or if you do have concerns, an option that we can use. I don't think my square footage concern is an environmental planning concern per se. I think it's just a note to confirm the amount. So I did it up to how you'd like to proceed.
Planning board members?
I've got a general question. Isn't the idea when a new zoning law goes into effect that as things get replaced, that they meet the new zoning code? It occurs to me that any person on that strip who puts a new sign up who follows the zoning law is at a huge disadvantage of people who are, quote, replacing in kind much larger than what the zoning law calls for. So I don't know if the zoning law is too restrictive, in which case maybe it should change, or too freely saying, yeah, fine, you know, we're replacing in kind, so go ahead. Just a thought.
One note that we did previously provide when we reviewed this was that I think the board generally agreed that the sign code as it is now does not permit adequate signage size for commercial uses on some of these commercial corridors. So we had suggested that a consideration be made to adjust the zoning, but that kind of created some weird conflicts because the ZBA doesn't change existing zoning. So I don't recommend we send that back to the ZBA as a comment again, but certainly I can make it as a note and forward that to, say, the town board for consideration. Again, I don't want to create confusion by doing the same thing. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Someone who comes in with a new sign would be held to the code and say, ask for a variance. And this is requesting to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming the zoning law had a view for what hopefully that corridor would look like over time. And, you know, it's not happening.
All signs were supposed to be brought up to code within 5 years of the adoption of the ordinance, and that was not required.
Anyone else? Do you have a preference as to which of the two options Jim gave us that you'd like to move forward?
Personally, I think that the variances make sense. I think the law is too restrictive. It's a 45 miles an hour, people go 50 down that road. I believe the size of signs that are now permitted is too small. You don't want people, staring and squinting trying to read a sign, and they're zipping down Route 9. You're not big enough so they can look up, that's where it is. I think we've known for some time, I think some of the restrictive sign, elements of sign ordinances in the new law really, I think, are adequate to actually function as identification signs for most situations.
Would you like these comments included in the referral back to the ZBA?
I would be
Think
happy
about
to,
it.
yeah, I think that this needs to be looked at.
I'd like to forward the notes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
I don't see this part as the actual motion, but I would say note on there that this discussion took place, and then they in turn, if they feel the same is warranted, can pass it on back to the town board.
So I have two notes if we go that route, one for the ZBA about the sign size and then one about the need to look at zoning again.
Okay, so we're going with finds that the requested variance raises no significant planning or environmental concerns, recommends that the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts in deciding the application in accordance with the criteria set forth in Town Code Chapter 125. Could I have a motion? Thank you, Michael. Second, please.
Second, Sean.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the second ZBA referral this evening is case number 1039, Chandemont. Jim? Is that here in our package? I see, yeah, it is in the invitation.
So the second ZBA referral is Chandemont. They are before the ZBA for installation of a 20 by 50 foot pool. Upon review by the zoning administrator, they were found to require variances, which actually mostly pertain to what's on the site now, but because they're coming in to put in something new, they have to bring it up to code or get variances to do so. So they're looking for an area variance for a structure projecting closer to the road than the principal building on the lot or being located within a required front yard, and a variance of 652 square feet to bring the existing structures up to code. There's a total of 2,152 square feet of roofed of existing accessory structure on the site, and the code only permits 1,500 square feet. The 1,000 square foot additional accessory area is actually the pool, which is unroofed, so the accessory area total is larger, but there's a roof total. So we are looking at the variance for the roof structures, 652 square foot variance request, and that's all existing.
Questions? Questions, comments?
Seems pretty simple.
All right, Jim, you want to go over the referral then?
So we're asking the planning board upon referral of the ZBA on the application by Chandemont for variances related to installation of the pool. Finding the requested variance raises no significant planning or environmental concerns, and recommending the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts in deciding the application in accordance with the criteria set forth in Chapter 125.
Have a motion?
So move, Sean.
Second.
Second, Delise. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to our first public hearing of this evening. That is Laura Sullivan, 127 Hilltop Road, site plan review for the construction of a pool house.
I have the team this time, so I think it'll be helpful. Would you please use the microphone?
And introduce yourself.
My name is Catherine Ackert. I'm the owner of Hudson Valley Estate Management. I'm the project manager for the project on 127 Hilltop Road.
Do you want to give us an overview of the project?
Sure, I think it's best for each individual, our engineer and our architect to kind of do the layout for the questions that we had from the last time. They can pretty much go through the lighting, the things that we kind of questioned, right? So I can introduce Tyler.
I'm Tyler Horsley, I'm from Wagner Larson Landscape Architects. And we did the site plan for this project. There's a sheet that is like a whole overall site plan that we could maybe do, or I can start with this if you want. We're in the architecturals. Was submitted, it's dated 4/3/23. Yeah. Well, I can give you an overview from this plan.
I'll get to it. If you want to start.
Okay. I'm 7 feet tall, so this I feel like a rock star.
Or at least the best.
Do you need a general overview, or do you just want some of the changes that were in response to your previous comments?
Why don't you update us on the previous, answer the previous comments, and then if we get lost, we'll go back.
Okay. There were a couple questions. One regarded the height of the retaining wall around the back of the pool on the east side. And that was, it was somehow noted in the comments that it was 9 feet high, but actually that information was taken from the architectural plans. And there wasn't a recognition that, these were some old plans here, that basically that wall is 4.1 feet high. And the pool fence is right behind that wall. So in this plan, it would run, it's like this wall here, but the actual height of it in relation to the pool is 5.1 feet high. Then there were some comments about the lighting. So we just removed the moonlighting, which hangs from the trees and lights the driveway from the plans. And we removed the, there was a canopy structure with some string lights that we just removed from the plans. So the only lighting that remains on the plans are path lights that are fully shaded and light down, and then wall lights that are fully shaded and light down from the wall. So that's the only landscape lighting that's left. And those were really the only substantive changes that we made. There was some coordinating with the revised septic system that we did, but not the septic engineer, but Oh, okay. Oh, here we are. Hi. Do you want to come up and talk about that?
Let's
or-
do anything landscape related or any questions to you first.
That's pretty much the extent of the landscape changes.
All right, planning board members, comments or questions about this part of the application?
I just had one about the height, just to clarify. So, I talked about the height of the wall. I understand you're talking about the inside on the pool side, but the back side of the wall, where the wall will be here down to grade, that's where I took.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you would be looking at a 9-foot wall, not the inside. Obviously, it's a retaining wall.
But that actually slopes up. Like if you want to see the grading plan and the landscape plan.
Well, it's fine. It said finished grade here.
Right,
That's
right.
why you took the number.
No, I understand where it came from, but yeah.
So it's not going to be 9 feet, it'll be less.
Yeah, the actual height of the wall, and even there, it's less, but at the highest part of the wall, which is at the pool terrace, is 5.1 feet.
And that'll meet the state code for pools around?
Yes. Actually, the pool enclosure is provided by the fence behind it. Because like the way the pool enclosure works, it's about getting into the pool, so we need a fence behind the wall. And then the fence also provides a life safety factor, just so people don't fall off the wall into the pool.
Was there a fence shown on the plans?
There is a fencing plan. It is in the architecturals. It's our 501, L501. Yeah, this is old, because that shows the other light fixtures. Yeah, this is an old set that we're looking at right here. There's a more recent set. I have a mini set of it right here. Sure.
They were delivered on the 23rd.
Are they submitted digitally as well? Okay. I don't see them, but anyway.
The 23rd.
I have a paper copy here. It's not projectable, but
Well, as long as you're saying that the wall is less than 6 feet high, and the fence is, it's all consistent with New York State code for pool surrounds, we'd ask for this note to be added on the plans, and that addresses the comment that I have, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, that's on the plans now.
Okay, anyone else?
Originally, we were, in terms of the septic system.
I'm sorry, did you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Marty Williams. I'm the civil engineer that everyone brought on board to work on the septic system. Originally, we were just going to be relocating the pump and septic tank to give us separation to the pool, minimum separation to the pool. But just in talking with the board, we determined that we were going to need 3 additional bedrooms treatment for the septic system. The existing, we took a look at the existing septic system for additional capacity for those 3 bedrooms, and it wasn't there. So what we ended up doing is designing a supplemental system on site to handle the sewerage from the pool house, from the gym, and also from the office space that's going to be installed. The pool house will have its own 1,000-gallon septic tank, and the garage or office / studio will also have its own 1,000-gallon septic tank. Sorry. So we're basically back into the health department, and we should be good. Can I answer any questions?
Is it going to use the same absorption field for all 3 tanks?
So there's an existing absorption field that the 4-bedroom home currently pumps to, and we just didn't, just the lay of the land, the rock outcroppings, we didn't have room to expand that field, and it didn't have the capacity as is to take the 3 additional bedrooms. So we contacted the health department, conducted additional deep tests on site, found an alternative area to build a septic system. And so the pool house, the office, and the gym now will have their own supplemental septic system. So it's basically completely separate.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can actually see here's our 4-bedroom, oh, sorry. There's our 4-bedroom house right here. And the current septic tank was right here being pumped to the primary field. What we did was we relocated the septic tank and the pump chamber serving the 4-bedroom to give us our separations from the pool and the spa. And what we ended up needing to do, because that field didn't have the capacity to treat the pool and the office and the gym that are going to be in the garage, we designed a new septic system field over here to the left, to the left. That's in orange right there, and there are the new septic tanks for the additional office and gym and the pool house.
Did the new absorption fields require expansion, or did that just, you had to expand the expansion.
The new observation field shown in orange there, Dutchess County always required 100% expansion.
Yes.
And so we've got that, and the dashed in gray,
Okay.
right there would be that.
So, got it.
And then the 100% expansion for the existing system,
It's up at the top.
you just see a little bit of it right there.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll let you know, correspondence that we received from the health department should be fine.
I take that to mean you've not heard back from the health department, right?
We've submitted, but we haven't gotten a review back.
Catherine, I
Yes.
want some clarification. The application that's before us now does not include
The garage.
the
Correct.
garage at all, is that correct? So-
Correct, we're just doing the pool house because we're under the assumption that we're gonna need a variance because of the size, to apply for a variance because the square footage is over.
Right, so
The
a lot of what you just explained is
Yeah.
relative to the future?
Well, the pool house, when I was here last, the pool house, we have, we're putting a restroom in and a kitchenette, correct, a small kitchenette. So the existing septic tank cannot handle, it's only 80, I believe, Michael, we only spoke, it was 80 per gallon, whatever, and it needs to be up to
110.
110. So we, instead of going that route, we said, why don't we kind of be proactive and go right to the Board of Health under the guidance of, what the variances and what my regulations are, to then just do two separate ones and kind of get it done. And that way, when we do come back in a year or so from now and want to do the garage, we have it in place and we're ready to.
Just one clarification for the board, that
Sure.
it is not part of the
Understood.
application that's here. Okay. Looks like we have somebody else at that.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Holt Jones. We're Restudo and Architects. We did the design for the future office gym and the pool house. Based on the feedback we got from the last meeting, I think it was mostly dimensional information missing from our plans. We included those on the set submitted 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure if those have been pulled up.
I don't have a digital copy.
Okay. So the pool house exterior is about 23 by 25 feet, 568 square feet total, 563 square feet. So that does put us over the 1,500 allowable for the accessory structure when we count the garage as well. Catherine mentioned that there might be an exemption made for the garage where the car park area is. It's separate from the office as a partition wall. I'm not sure if that's, yeah. So I guess we're waiting on that. We're taking the splits out.
That was one of the questions that you had on the agenda from last time.
Okay. So there will be no mini splits in the building at all?
In the pool house,
In the pool
correct.
house.
So it won't be conditioned space.
It'll be winterized per season, obviously.
Any
And-
questions of this gentleman?
The retaining wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the retaining wall was cleared up. That was a graphic issue on the plans showing not showing the grading up, so that retaining wall is not over 9 feet. And it's going to be integrated within our stem wall. The retaining wall is basically our stem wall for the house, so that we're gonna come in and put the house structure up from that retaining wall. In the future, once we get the approvals that we need.
Yeah, it was just confusing because the label showed wood behind it would have been retaining wall.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that those were the questions that were on the agenda for, from last meeting.
All right, Jim?
No, I think that covers all the questions. I guess, the issue is just have outstanding board of health approval.
Other planning board members? Questions, comments?
I went to the site
Okay.
and
Who went with you?
me and Craig were missing each other a little bit, but I took some pictures and we discussed. And there was still some questions sort of related that I think were covered tonight, which were really helpful, which the context wasn't fully there to give a full assessment perhaps at that moment. So, you know, to be honest, I don't know if it's appropriate to do a second one or not, but what I can say is that placement made sense in relationship to the house, you know, where it was, and it clearly seemed that the work being done in the ground to, you know, work towards supplemental septic system and all of that made sense in relationship. There was no, you know, wetlands concerns or any of that stuff, but my major concerns were related to what was discussed tonight.
Greg?
I did not make the site visit, I'm sorry to say, but I did look at Delisa's pictures. It does look like it's a pretty challenging site, with a lot of changes in topography and a lot of rock, and I would hope that there are some provisions being made for soil retention so that there aren't washouts.
Colin, Liam is with Earthworks if you want to ask any of those kind of questions. That's my dirt team.
Okay.
Do you want to ask them what they're doing?
I don't have any specific questions because I wasn't standing there saying, what are you going to do about this hillside back? But it looks like there's a lot of.
I think we're reutilizing a lot of the, we're refurbishing and reutilizing a lot of the earth that we have there.
Okay.
We took a lot out to put that pool in.
Right. And the rock that was removed, is that
We are still
repurposed on
removing
site?
it.
Or is that being hauled
We're
away?
using as backfill, correct?
A lot of the jackhammer material is being trucked off site.
Okay.
Did you have quantity?
I'm sorry?
Have you been able to estimate the quantity that's being moved off-site?
The jackhammered rock,
Yeah.
or just like any overburden or any other debris that we've removed?
Yes, all of that.
Yeah,
There are
we-
regulations about removing soil and taking off site.
I'm
There are
sorry.
regulations about removing soil and material and taking it off site.
Yeah, I mean, we removed a couple truckloads of stumps. The jackhammer material that can't be used as backfill, we've maybe removed 2 triaxle loads, which would be about 30 yards.
Need a permit? I would think you need a permit. It reaches, what's the, 200 cubic yards requires a permit to be moving anything off-site.
Including tree stumps.
Basically, it's mineral materials, not.
Okay. Would that have been entailed with the pool? Because that removal was from the pool. The pool, permit, I'm sorry. That was applied for by
You should have
NHM.
the building permit for the pool, that would technically cover, means you're going to excavate for a pool, so that would be understood. But if you're doing all sorts of site preparation, you had to remove a number of things for different portions of the building, things of that sort. If it's over 200 cubic yards of material, that would be stone or soil, things like that, not wood or brush or things of that sort. It can require a special use permit, so that you're moving it off-site, or if you're moving it around on the property.
Okay.
Use it in different areas. If it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's what, 2 triaxles, 30 cubic yards, obviously is significantly less than 200, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be mindful of that.
Sure.
I would ask you to look ahead and project if there's going to be any more of that, and then you should apply for a permit.
Absolutely. I believe all of the debris is done. It was for the pool area itself, and the pool has obviously been put in, so that's what the last part of this now is just taking down that, we're trying to get that rock down, so we can put the fence behind the pool. And we couldn't blast, obviously, because the house is blast, so.
That would be a problem. Okay, planning board members, any follow-up questions? It's a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here wishing to comment on this application? If so, I'll invite you one by one to come up, introduce yourself, and make your comments.
Philip Marks.
Patricia Marks.
We live at 114 Hilltop Road. Some of those statements you just made are not true. He hauled out of there for 2 days with 2 triaxles. So at least 10 loads apiece. So there, it's a 1,000-yard excavation. You know, whatever you take out, you can't be more than 1,000 yards, I hope. We have a bunch of questions. How much longer is this gonna be? We put up for this since the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They've been hammering every day. They were hammering when we left.
We're talking almost 6 days a week, from anywhere from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., which I understand now, we've been to the zoning board, that is the time frame.
Which to me is not, because that is construction time frame. They're not building anything. This is heavy equipment. I have a recording, if you'd like to hear it, which a friend of mine did, was 65 decibels, which was about 100 feet away. And we got to listen to this all day, every day. It's getting warm, you can't open your windows. They should have known when they brought the equipment in what the ground was like. You have rocks sticking up all over. So, of course, you're going to run into rock. So, my question is, how much longer?
What is the time frame on this project completely?
I'm sorry?
They'd like to know the time frame on the drilling.
My guy that was there, who finished up about an hour ago, he was gonna pull some string lines tomorrow so that we can know, you know, he claims a couple more hours, but.
Yeah, we heard that 2 weeks ago.
And a couple more hours on what? Just what you've done already, not what you're still going to need to do? You're still going to need to do footings?
I'm sure you're going to need to jackhammer the septic. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is going to go into the summer. How are we supposed to open our windows? We can't even enjoy ourselves. I sit down and eat my dinner, and I got to listen to this. This crap. Something needs to be done.
All right.
And, you know, why do we have a noise ordinance? I get an email from the zoning officer. Decibel levels don't matter. So what's the sense of having a noise ordinance?
Thank
I
you.
mean, I'm getting pretty tired of it. I've called the cops. They tell me to go to the zoning officer. The zoning officer tells me to call the cops. I mean, if they want to play around, I guess I can play around too.
You already have.
Is there anything else?
Yes, there is.
I mean, my neighbor back there measured his decibel right off of his deck, which is probably 50 feet from there, and it was 125.
I have a petition here that I drew up, and I had most of the neighbors and right around us that here constantly sign it. So I'd like to read this petition, okay?
How long is the petition?
It's not
2
long.
paragraphs.
Okay. I'd like you to keep your comments to 5 minutes.
Okay. The following residents of Hilltop Road respectfully request the planning board to address a noise issue at 127 Hilltop Road in Rhinebeck, New York. For the past 4 months, we have endured excessive noise from the hammering of rock being done with an excavator at the Laura Sullivan property in preparation to install a pool and hardscape. It is our understanding that the public hearing is to request a permit to construct a pool house requiring more hammering of rock to construct. Our windows and doors have been closed all winter, and the noise of the hammering has still been very intrusive. With the weather improving and spring coming, we will be opening our doors and windows, which will cause the noise to be even more invasive to our families and our quality of life. We have elderly residents in the neighborhood who like to sleep in the mornings and take naps throughout the day, as well as those who like to enjoy a peaceful walk along our road. We in the neighborhood cannot even enjoy a peaceful dinner after a long day at work or unwind in the early evening before retiring early to accommodate an early work schedule because of constant hammering going on as late as 7:30 p.m. While we understand the town regulations allow construction times to be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, by our signatures below, we are requesting that an approval of this project has a condition that restricts the hammering and construction times to be limited to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. due to the nature of the construction requiring the hammering to be done. This is in consideration of the neighbors and our quality of life in our homes, allowing us to enjoy our evenings and weekends without the constant hammering. We have no opposition to the construction of the pool house, just the noise that it creates. And also, I'd like to say too that, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, but if you could just take this in consideration. I've lived on this road for all of my life. I'm 59 years old, and we've never had an issue like this before where people coming in to construct have been so inconsiderate of the neighbors. So, if you,
Thank you.
I could give a copy of this.
Give a copy of that to the clerk. And Jim,
I just wanted to, just know for the record, since there are a lot of people in the room, there have been a lot of discussions about noise in town in the last 6 to 8 months that I'm aware of, and I probably only know half of it being the planning board planner. But the noise regulations in the town code state for enforcement and administration that the noise control requirements established by the section shall be administered and enforced jointly by the town zoning enforcement officer, local enforcement agencies, and such other employees and/or officials authorized by the town board. So the noise ordinance itself really is not something for the planning board to discuss as part of the application. Certainly consideration is something to think about, but the enforcement of noise is on the zoning administrator and enforcement officials.
I would raise one point.
Michael, you need to talk in the microphone, people really can't hear you.
I think that if the zoning administrator were to file a violation of the zoning, of this, under the zoning law, under the noise ordinance, it would preclude the planning board from proceeding with reviewing this application. So I think in the best interest of all concerned, I think that we should certainly continue this public hearing. But I think having a sit down and talk about, and also with the town attorney, our legal representatives, exactly what our position would be on this. We had a similar situation down in Rhinecliff, which the zoning administrator worked with the people working on that to come up with a solution to that before they were able to proceed. And I think that we should at least take the time to try and look into this. I was not aware of this situation myself, that this was part of the self-construction project that they had some rock they were working on. I didn't know this, but I think that the fact that if a violation was issued and everything was come to a halt, I think why don't we try to, be a little proactive here, look into this and see exactly what we might do if we could try and come to some sort of agreement. It doesn't sound to me that what was just proposed in that amendment is by any means onerous. We're not asking them to stop, they're not asking them to halt, we're just asking for perhaps a curtailment at the time when the rock hammering is going on.
it's a very good point, Lynn. We just want to make clear, we're not dismissing your comments or your concerns, simply clarifying that this application is, the noise ordinance is not under our purview, so.
Right, and I understand that, it was the only way. We've been to the zoning board, we've been to the state troopers, the cops. It's one, whoever we talk to, they say, no, it's their problem, and we keep going back and forth. So we figured at least at the public hearing, we could make our voice heard.
Yep, and I'm sure it's very frustrating, so I
Yes,
thank
it
you
is.
for your patience. Next?
Hi, my name is Alicia Lenhart. My husband and I live at 141 Hilltop Road. We sit directly in front of the property at 127 because of the curvature of the road. Thank you, Michael, for bringing up that part about working together with the zoning office. I think the ordinances were put into place for normal construction, and I think what we heard today, and everyone can agree that this is not exactly normal. I can tell you that we lived there for 18 years. Sean Miller built that 5,000 and something square foot house behind us, and we didn't hear a sound. So that gives you some context as a difference in the dichotomy of what we're dealing with here. We are in lockstep with our neighbors 100%. I can also attest that much more backfill was taken out of the property. I can see, because of the trees not having leaves, that we can see, I work from home 100% of the time, and and we can see the trucks going in and out. So I heard a definite disconnect between the project manager, Kat Ackert, and what her subcontractors said, and I'd really like that explored as soon as possible. If they do not have the proper permits, I'd like a stop order issued until someone can investigate it. Are you guys willing to do that?
And take in all the information.
Okay, great. A couple of things I wanted to ask about that was talked about here. So is it my understanding that the septic systems have not been changed yet? You're waiting for county approval, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the pool is actually in, and you guys are just blasting to create a fence? Okay. I didn't know that part. I thought you guys were blasting to put a ginormous pool in. I can't wait to be invited to the pool party. It looks lovely. But, you know, have alternative ideas been explored for a fence? I mean, can't like something be lag bolted into the existing stone or some other creative way to put a fence around? Has any of that been explored since the project has been so cumbersome? You guys are completely way over budget at this point. You're telling the zoning officer that you're losing your shirt and you can't wait to get the hell out of there. So, you know, what has been explored exactly?
That is completely untrue. That was never said by anybody on the team.
That's what the zoning officer is saying.
Yeah,
Keep it civil.
Yeah, I'm just repeating what Brian Tam told me last Monday.
Well, we don't deal in hearsay.
It's not hearsay, I'm telling you that he spoke to me about it.
Okay.
I mean, you took their word for hearsay.
I haven't taken anybody's word.
Okay. So has anything alternative been explored on the fencing?
Can I ask a quick question? Am I correct that all questions need to be to us and then we
Yes.
ask them back out? I just think it might
So you
make
need
a
to write
better
your questions to the
flow
planning
of
board,
communication.
and we will give the opportunity for responses back to the applicant.
Okay, have you asked them for any alternatives to a fencing schematic that would not require the amount of land degradation and blasting and noise and drilling that's been occurring over the past 4 months?
No, we have not.
Can you?
We can discuss it.
Was the fencing part of the pool that was already approved, I guess?
Yes, so
Yes.
what's been going on, having gone before it came to the planning board, I did want to mention that. I think our first presentation was last month to the planning board, since it's the first public hearing, if I remember correctly.
Pool was approved previously.
This is for the fencing,
Well, fencing is part of a pool approval.
but I saw it on these plans. Is this not the hearing for the plans with the pool house and the fencing around it?
This is for the pool house, but because it's being submitted to the planning board for review, anything's on the table for discussion and review. That's why I bring up these issues, to make sure that as it moves forward, it meets what we want it to meet. But
Okay.
just because I'm looking at everything, including lights and other things that aren't necessarily associated directly with the pool house, I'm still gonna call it out as a question, because it is within the planning board's purview when the application comes through.
Was there any geographical reference, and that is probably not the right word, but, you know, a type of, a showing of the amount of rock and bedrock? Was that part of the plans?
The first set of plans that came in didn't have topography on them, and I asked for those. I didn't get a digital version of the set here, so I'll have to take a look. I haven't had a chance to see what was recently done.
Okay, so can you comment on, do you think your approvals were premature without actually seeing the site and what was required?
The pool is not permitted through the planning board, that is done through the building department.
But
This is,
I'm talking about the fencing as part of this
nothing's
plan.
been approved by the planning board. We're still in discussions. So what's going on now was approved for the building permit.
Well, no, they said the pool is in, now they're drilling for the fence. The fence is part of this plan. So why are they able to still drill for a fence that hasn't been approved yet?
It's on this plan because it has to be shown on the plan, and it's something we're discussing. But for them to get a pool permit, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, they would have had to have shown a fence. That would have been part of that building permit. So that was all approved by the building department prior to it coming to the planning board. Again, because it's before the planning board, anything on the site plan is fair game for discussion. in terms of-
So what are the steps to getting a retroactive review of the planning board then? Because of the circumstances that exist today. No topography, drilling, for months and months and months, and, trying to look at alternatives for fencing that would still meet the town's requirements.
Well, I think this, from the meetings, we've heard, this is the first, we've heard of it in a meeting setting, and again, this is the first public hearing, so those are things we'll have to talk about. I'll have to talk with Brian and see what he's been discussing, and, we'll kind of go from there. Michael's had some discussions in this back when he was acting as EA, so we obviously have some things we need to discuss. I'll talk with Brian, I'll work with Melody and we'll kind of see where we go. This is what the public hearings are for, to hear comments and questions and see where we go. But this one is a little confusing because there are different things going on. The pool was permitted before it came to the planning board. So there are things going on that have already been permitted, but it's back before us for a separate issue, but it's still something that we're taking a look at.
Right, but from what we've heard today, it seems reasonable that there wasn't a lot of, the full picture wasn't really presented, there was no topography. And so now you have a whole town, a whole street that has petitioned to do something about this. So I'm looking to you all to advise on next steps. Can we put a temporary stop on the drilling until you have the time to investigate a little bit further?
Again, that's something that would have to be done with the zoning administrator. That's not something the planning board does. So again, I can bring your comments forward, but if something like that has to be done, I mean, Mike knows better than I do. I think a complaint has to be submitted to the zoning administrator. That's something he would have to take a look at and consider. The planning board doesn't do that.
The comments that you brought forward tonight, even your neighbors and whatnot, you're really, documenting to the zoning administrator. Because he's the only one who's legally entitled to, and you can mention if you were discussing it with us tonight, is the only one who's authorized to do a stop work order or a notice of violation. Planning board has absolutely no enforcement authority whatsoever. We can approve a plan, but we can't enforce its being actually carried out. That's the zoning.
Well, the
administrator.
zoning officer is aware. He's been aware for weeks, if not a couple months.
Well,
So,
then we will circle back to the zoning administrator. We will find out where he is. He's a person that has to take action. I'm presuming that your comments to him were in writing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's our next step then.
Okay. And just one other question, I do appreciate the time. After, you said you think there's a few more hours of drilling, is that what I heard you say?
I'm going to allow Catherine when we're done for her to respond to some of this, and then
Okay.
perhaps then she can give you some timeline information.
Okay, and then, okay, so my final question is on the septic part. Will there be more drilling needed for that once the county approves it? That's my last
We
question.
will ask.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the public? Yes, sir.
My name's Rodney Johnson. I live at 141 Hilltop with my wife Alicia. There's not really a lot I can add to the noise aspect of it or potential many more loads of fill being brought out of there, that's for sure. And this is, I'm not gonna take up any more time. I'm gonna go, I used to be a member of the CAB and I was on the comp plan as a lead biologist with Hudsonia. You know, we designated 7 conservation districts in this town as part of our comp plan. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Well, that's a Hilltop Conservation District. It's the biggest continuous forest in Rhinebeck. It's all the headwaters of about every stream in this town and the water supply. I'll be going to the ZBA, work with the CAB on this to start drilling. I'm not going to get into mammalogy or all kinds of hibernation facts, but I'm sure you all know you wake things out of migration. They're pretty much done. And drilling, it's not just about the noise. There's a lot of physics involved and, the topography. There's shock waves going under the ground. I mean, I can feel them in the house, and I'm at least 120 meters away from the drilling sites. And you can't, it doesn't matter how loud you turn the TV up, you're still feeling it. Your cat's feeling it, all the animals are feeling it, not just domesticated animals, but I can see a change in wildlife and, just everything going on. They were doing this all winter. I understand people want to get projects done and so forth, but I think in the conservation districts and sensitive habitats, the zoning has to look into shorter time periods. You can't go 7 in the morning until 7 at night. That's 12 hours a day. Any animal in a diurnal rhythm is going to be totally screwed up. Vocalization of birds, bats, echolocation, there's a lot of factors that, it reduces milk production, it lowers egg laying abilities of birds. There's a whole lot of variables. So I just want people to think about that. And I will visit with the CAB and the zoning board on that sort of thing. It should be a little bit different in sensitive areas and just same time as anywhere. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public? Anything else before?
I just,
You have to come
oh,
forward.
sure. I just wanted to respond to the questions about the septic system. As I understand it, there will be localized hammering for the two septic tanks, the two new septic tanks that will go in. The field itself will not require any hammering. So the tanks are each 5 feet by 5 feet deep by 10 feet long. And that should be the only hammering associated with the septic system.
Into soil or into rock?
Well, hammering is into rock.
So you're talking each.
No, I don't think that's a.
They've been hammered in one spot for 2 weeks.
All right, we're gonna,
Yeah, sorry.
I want to maintain some order here, so we're not gonna, you're commenting to us, we will be taking all this information into consideration. I don't want to start a back and forth here, because obviously we're continuing this public hearing in anticipation of getting a lot more information in. So, please just talk to us.
I will say that the hammering for the septic tanks, it is localized. It's just a 5 by 10 foot area. It's hard to say how much time each spot will take because of you don't know what type of rock you're getting into. So
Okay, well, I think as you move forward and as you learn more, the more you can share with your neighbors about what's going on and when to expect things to be happening would be at least helpful. So, Craig?
I have a follow-up question. Have you done any test pits for the auxiliary leach fields?
Yes, we have. We've done 3 test pits, and we hit rock on 1 of the 3. But with septic systems in Dutchess County, you need to have a 5-foot vertical separation to the bottom of the trench. So there's no hammering to be done. With an actual leach field, no hammering is allowed. You always need to bring fill in over top of that rock.
Okay, so at what depth did you encounter rock?
So we had 3 deep tests. Actually, oh yeah, great. So I'm just gonna, so we had 3 deep tests. 1 deep test here, 1 deep test here, and 1 deep test here. At this deep test, we encountered bedrock at 42 inches. At these 2 deep tests, this deep test we encountered bedrock at 72 inches, and this deep test we encountered bedrock at 84 inches. If you could just scroll, sorry, if you can go to the right a little bit though. But basically, no hammering will be done associated with the actual field. So yeah, 42 inches for deep test number 1. For deep test number 2, it was 72 inches, and rock was not encountered for the 3rd deep test. And you can see that our septic system is located completely within deep test 2 and 3. So yeah, absolutely no hammering for the system. There will likely be hammering for this septic tank here, and also for this septic tank here.
So are you going to need to bring in fill for the top?
For this area here, we'll bring in sand and gravel fill.
Okay, and just based on the topography, are you going to have problems with the slope?
No. So this is the proposed topography right here. So it's about a 7% grade across the system, and then it tapers back to ground right here at 31.
So Michael, I'm assuming that when someone comes in for a building permit, it's not discussed whether or not rock hammering will be required. Is that right?
No, it's not. Basically, would be part of the construction plans, because basically we're going to rock you from protective fittings, things like that. So it would be part of construction plans. But whether or not it's a desirable thing to do or not, would not be at that point to be discussed, especially if it's just a straight building permit. reason for any planning board review of permitting, things like that. It's just for anything like it was for the pool, the planning board would never see it.
And there's nothing in the zoning law that restricts rock hammering to construct.
No, not even mentioned. No.
No.
There is the noise ordinance, and that noise is permitted. And as Larry points out, the zoning administrator has to issue any violations, things of that sort, but it doesn't include the planning board when it says we think there's an issue with the
And
zoning enforcement.
the noise restrictions refer to construction as well as other noises.
There's all different types, either intermittent noises, constant noises, things like that. And there are hours of the day and night when the noise level investigated changes. It's less at night than it is during daylight.
Do the noise restrictions set time limitations during which noise can be emitted?
Yes, they do. The different levels, yes.
And they're certainly more restrictive than 77.
I don't remember off the top of my head what they were, when they changed, when they shift. It's like, I don't know how they're done. For some reason, I thought it was something to 8 p.m., at which time it changes to a nighttime, to a lower noise level, either 7 or 8 a.m., which then comes out the higher decibel level.
All right, so, and anything else?
Nothing.
Anyone else?
I'm just going to touch on very quickly a few of the questions that were raised, just so that we can have a synergy of answers perhaps, which was the conversation on fence alternative. Maybe that doesn't even matter because that's out of our area, but I know there was questions, is there a fence alternative? And so I just let you guys answer that for that.
As far as the fence, we're going by New York State code, so there's only a certain amount of fencing that you can use on the type of structure from the pool. And we gave 2 options at the beginning when we did the pool, and they went for the latter of the options because the other one would have been worse than what we're dealing with. That being said, that's the first question. The second question is, we are, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Connor. I'm the owner of the excavation company with my brother as well. And I wanted to touch on the sound question that was being discussed earlier. We would be more than happy to implement that right away. We're working within the petition hours. We hate this as much as everybody else. It's just dragging on, and we'd like to be less of a burden, obviously, and make everyone amenable to what we have to do. So if we can work within what they're asking, we're okay with doing that in the parameters.
Realize we would certainly encourage you.
Yeah, I consider it.
Position to.
Consider it done. We can absolutely do that. We're actually down to 4 days a week as well. We're just trying to get it done as quickly and as soon as possible.
Unless there are other important relevant issues that haven't been
I would
touched.
like to address the trucking. A lot of the removal of what was removed off the property was concrete, and a lot of those trucks that came in were stone. There was a lot of stone that had to be brought in to be underneath the belly of the gunite. So maybe they did see a lot of trucks, and I'm not, denying that, but it wasn't all for removal. I mean, my client is absolutely, she's completely understanding of her neighbors. She's respectful. She's doing her best to be respectful.
We're going to obviously continue this public hearing for a number of reasons. Number one, we have not yet heard back from the health department, and so that is still pending. And we need to be speaking with the zoning administrator and following up on the questions and issues that were raised this evening. So I don't want to keep going over ground that's already been covered or uncovered or moved or whatever. So I think we've exhausted the topic for this evening, unless there is something, I'm offering it up again. If there's anything else that's new and hasn't been discussed previously, now's the time to do it. If not, I would ask my planning board members for a motion to continue the public hearing.
So moved.
Two.
But, do you want to do 1 month or 2? Sorry. Didn't mean to throw that out there, but
What's the agenda look like next month?
we still have time for people to put new applications
All
in,
right.
so.
Let's give them a continuation until the next meeting.
May 1st.
May 1st, but it's also the Rockledge. Is that correct?
Yeah.
but I think those are the only, I mean, not the only kids, depends on what
All right.
happens to tonight,
Oh,
so.
what's your pleasure, folks? You wanna go 1 month or 2 months?
But we're also waiting for Dutchess County.
Have you gotten any updates from Dutchess County? Do you know where they are?
For the health department review?
Yes.
We've submitted plans, but they basically have a backlog of work.
No, I know.
So no.
But you haven't spoken to them and they haven't given you any indication that it would be turning around soon?
No.
Then let's go 2 months. Okay? That would take us to what?
June 5th.
June 5th, okay. Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing and can I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, the motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Just to reiterate, we are here, it's taking public comment. So I hope you appreciate that, Matt, and we appreciate you. Next up is the Village of Rhinebeck, 283-308 site plan review for a composting site. And I think we have again, that's Vanessa, would you like to comment?
Hi, good evening. I'm Vanessa Bertozzi, village trustee for Rhinebeck. I'm here representing the village for a municipal composting project to be located at our village highway department property, which is obviously in the town. And therefore that's what brings us to you. We presented on March 6th. And tonight, we have some items to address as follow-ups. I'm going to let Brandon Nelson from Time Bonds speak to most of those questions, but I first wanted to address the item of the sight lines easement on the neighboring property. So the driveway on Violet Hill Road. Hold on, the driveway on Violet Hill Road. Well, Violet Hill Road is a county road, and the county is requiring that we provide an easement if we want to be able to actively use that driveway without the use of a flagger, which is what we intend to do. So I'm now in the midst of getting that easement. Our village council has drafted the language. The village board will be voting on that at the village meeting next week. And the last piece of that is to hire a surveyor to be able to get proper meets and bounds for that easement. So I'm getting a few quotes, and so I wanted to just explain that process and where we're at with that. The easement is not required. We could just use a flagger, but we would prefer to have that easement. And I'd like to introduce Brandy Nelson. I also just want to say thank you to the public for coming. I know neighbors have a lot of questions about odor and animals, and Brandy can speak to some of those questions. And I look forward to hearing any comments or concerns.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brandy Nelson with Ty & Bond. And unfortunately, I didn't get Jim an updated plan early enough, so we do have a more recent plan that I can put on an easel and show you, and we can, oh, do you have it there? Oh my gosh, yes, that would be it. Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Okay, so we did two things with the updated plan. The first thing was we included an aerial photo of what is there now, just to understand the context of what is going on at the site now. So the village owns about a 7.5 acre parcel in the town, obviously, that has frontage and an access on Violet Hill Road and also on 308. The town's highway facility has operated there for a number of years in the larger building that is up here, right there. And also for a number of years, the village has done leaf waste mulching and not composting, but leaf waste mulching on the southern half of the property. The Landsman Kill bisects the property, and that's the reason that there are currently 2 entrances. So the proposal that we brought forward at the last meeting was to add, in this cleared area here, a composting operation for the village's food waste composting, which we discussed last time. The village has undertaken a pilot measure and would like to move forward with composting food waste with the leaf mulch and yard waste that they're already mulching on property. And so the changes that we made from the plan at the last meeting were really to address some of the comments that we heard from the board, but also Trustee Bertozzi has been coordinating with a compost facility designer who specializes in these sorts of things. And with their input, we have made the following changes. So the first change is that we are providing a separation of the residential drop-off area, which will occur here. And there's now a circle. Does that work for you guys? My shadow. There's a turnaround circle and compost bins that will be lidded so that there's no open compost material. I'll try it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's take the little
Red line.
red line. Oh, cool. Thank you. So entrance is the existing entrance off of Violet Hill Road. A circle for residents to come in, turn around, deposit their food scraps into lidded bins, like 30-gallon Rubbermaid type containers. And then what will happen operationally is that on a daily basis, the village will have staff empty those bins, mix them here in this area with bulked shredded wood mulch, and then the blended material is what forms the compost mix, and it'll go into one of these bins. The bins, we anticipate 1 bin of compost will be built each week. And it takes 3 to 5 weeks for the compost to go through the composting process and become finished and stabilized so that it could then go into a curing pile for a couple of weeks and then ultimately back for sale purposes. So the compost pad that the bins would sit on is, let's see, it is proposed to be 60 by, 60 by 34 feet. And each of the little bins where compost piles will be built out are 10 by 12. And each of those bins will have an aeration system in them. And these are, we discussed last time, the aeration system is aerated static piles. They have negative pressure, so air is drawn through the compost, and that keeps it oxygenated. And when it's oxygenated, then the microorganisms that go through the composting process do not give off sulfur compounds, which are the smelly things that cause odor problems. So the bins will be oxygenated with blowers that will draw air through. All the blowers will be in insulated housing that provides for sound dampening. And let's see, what else did we do? We did provide some images. If we're able to pan over to the, there we go, yeah. So on the left side of the screen, thank you so much, Jim. On the left side of the screen are 2 images of the bin styles that we're proposing for the site. And quite honestly, the style that it's built is a function of what the budget will be. The village has secured a grant for the construction of this and would like very much to be able, and would like to get approval from this board to be able to build the style in the upper photo, which has a shed roof over it. The shed roof would be no more than 15 feet tall, and it would be a singular sloping roof that would slope to the back. If budgetary constraints can't come into play, if budgetary constraints come into play, we would build the unroofed band blocks that are in the lower picture. And so it really just depends. So we'd like to get approval for the roof structure. Jim had some good comments for us the last time around. He asked how many structures there are on the property. So currently on the property, there is the highway garage structure and one small shed. There are 2 structures currently. If the roof structure was built, that would be a 3rd structure. So there's a primary structure, that's the garage, and then a like shed where the village keeps some tools. The design of the roof, we would anticipate it would be 840 square feet in the first phase. So we'd like to have 5 bins in the first phase, but we'd like to be able to build out 2 additional bins just to accommodate future growth potentially. And so that would go up to 1,008 square feet of rooftop. Trustee Bertozzi has been doing a lot of outreach in the community about this proposal, and we have received some comments from some of the neighbors that we've worked to respond to in this most recent submission. There was a question about the potential for there to be odors, and again, although there is a potential for odors to be created, the goal would be to operate the facility in a manner where we're maintaining everything in an aerobic environment. So that there is reduced odor created. There was a question about the sound that the blowers would make. We don't have blowers specified yet, but the blowers would all be placed into insulated housing. And the blowers are more than 50 feet from any property line. They'd be in contained housings, and they would not operate continuously. They would operate on an intermittent cycle. So there would not be constant noise there. And again, we're aware of the town's noise ordinance, and we would work with any equipment manufacturer to have a housing that could comply with the noise ordinance. We received a comment about lighting at the facility. There's no lighting proposed for the compost facility. And we were made aware of a lighting issue at the back of the highway garage that I believe has been corrected, or is being worked to be corrected. There was a question about whether or not there would be animals that would be attracted to the site, and of course, there's always a chance that animals will come onto a piece of property, but with proper management of the food by using the lidded containers for receiving the food scraps, that is the #1 way for there to be avoidance of any sort of animal issues. The second thing, the best management practices for compost facilities say daily incorporation of your food scraps into your compost pile. When the compost pile is built, it's actually covered with a finished layer of compost, so it's like encapsulated, which makes animals less likely to come to the site. And then when it's aerated, it's actually hot. It's up to about 140 degrees, and so less desirable to animals to go in. And then lastly, there was a question that was asked about whether or not speed limit would be reduced on Violet Hill Road. We have provided this proposal and plan to the County Highway Department. The jurisdiction for speed limit is with them. And at present, when we measure for sight lines out there, we meet all the stopping and turning sight distance requirements for the posted speed limit. The county has not told us they anticipate reducing the speed limit out there, but as Trustee Bertozzi said, they are asking for an easement for mowing this area, keeping it clear of any obstructions at the ground level so that the sight distance is maintained. That's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Mostly just follow-ups. We are still waiting on approval from the county highway for the driveway. Okay. We did get the photos and renderings that we asked for, which is good. We've got more detail on the site and where things are going, which I think is good. The sign, I'm a little confused on what I've read. Is there a sign proposed in this or not?
You are right. Yes, I forgot to mention. Yeah, after discussion with the village, there was a desire to have the option to have a sign. I believe for this district, no more than 4 square feet either side. So they were looking at having just a post with a little 2x2 sign that says Village Composting Facility.
Yeah, so I actually just did some recent work on this for another issue with a different governmental agency in town, but Because you're a governmental agency, I don't think you need a signed permit, but you still have to work with the zoning administrator to make sure your sign meets the code, and if you do, then you'll be able to just okay that and approve it. You don't think you have to go to the planning board for that sign. That was based on some abstract.
Yeah.
The only other issue, well, two issues, I think, if it is a roof structure, I think you're probably gonna be over 1,500 square feet of roof structures on the site, and that would require a special use permit from the planning board. So we need to know the total square footage of all the roof structures on the site,
The way I read that
accessory
part,
structures.
yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna ask for clarification. So I read it as accessory structures, so we've got one large primary structure and the other is like a 10 by 10, like a Home Depot shed.
Okay, well, that doesn't, yeah, probably need to count. Okay, so then the others would be 840 square feet, or up to 1,000 with the second, 1,008 with the second, or so phase two.
Do you want us to get an exact measurement and report it?
I think it'd just be good to have the numbers in the file. So it wouldn't seem we need a special use permit then for that. The only thing I do see, and I didn't get a chance to do a deep dive on these plans, but there's a turnaround proposed now, that I don't believe was on the plans before. And I do think that's going to encroach into 100-foot wetland buffer. The wetland buffer comes in 100 feet off of the creek, and I have to measure it. It's going to be close. So the edge here, again, just something to take a look at. The edge here may be.
I will, because I think this I believe was the buffer, so let me double check
That's
that.
100%. Okay, yeah, it might be all right. Just double check that. I can do it from a high level.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Was there a site visit conducted? Would you, what was
Okay,
your report?
Sean and I were out there. There was a lot of snow on the ground and piles of
Right, it's
snow.
really hard to hear. Would you mind using the microphone?
Let me speak into this. When,
Yeah, if everyone could, that would be great for hearing impaired people. Thank you.
You're welcome. When Sean and I were there was a lot of snow on the ground and piles of snow. So it was somewhat difficult to envision exactly what was going to go where. I did know that, excuse me, the road rises as you pass the planned location. And also there's a house on the road higher up. And so from the point of view of visibility of the facility, roofing, I think would be preferred from that perspective. I think it would lessen the visibility of what's going on there from the road and from that house. The other house is lower down. I took a look at Dutchess County parcel access at the flood zone, and I asked Jim if he wouldn't mind bringing that up so that we could locate the facility on this map. I was concerned about that tongue on the right of the flood zone that kind of, follows that low area there. And so one question I had is, when compost is finished and it's waiting to be used, then how and where will it be stored?
The compost would be in a bin block enclosure and would just be a pile of material inside a bin block enclosure. So that's a 3-sided enclosure.
And so it would be close to where everything else is.
On the plan, we're showing it generally like right here at the end of the road if you go straight into the site.
Another question that came to me is this issue of the blowers and how that mitigates odor. What would happen if electricity goes out for some period of time? Is there generator backup?
I don't believe a generator backup has been proposed yet, but I do know the village has a portable generator that they can take around to different sites as needed.
Sean, did you have any questions or comments?
Can you remind me, is this, I know there's a gate there now, but is it gonna be locked? Okay, I would definitely wanna just make sure of that. I'm thinking of like those clothes bins on the side of the road where no one follows the signs and they just throw pretty much everything, mattresses, you name it. So definitely something to, I don't think we've seen that on a plan. I might have totally missed it, but.
Currently, there is a gate right here. And that would be closed at the end of the day. The highway garage, the highway department operates 7 AM to 3 PM most days. I mean, that changes a little bit if they're like plowing or stuff like that. But that's the intention, to have those operating hours and then have it closed after that. I should note that in addition to residents being able to drop off here, we intend to have other drop-off locations as well in other areas.
And then the only other question I have, which kind of feeds a little bit off of Evan's question around, there's going to be a lot of maintenance on this site, a lot of equipment, and and I think I've heard a lot today, which is maybe outside of the planning board's zone, but I hear a lot about the cost to get up and going and not the cost to maintain it, which I think is just something, you know, with these machines, if they stop working, then we have to wonder, we could potentially have animals. If we can't get in a budget for someone to maintain the facility, then what does that mean for this facility after all this is put into it? So I think it's, you know, it's the only other concern I have, just with the impact to the neighbors around it. I don't have anything else to add.
Other planning board members?
Question.
Sure.
Between the roofed and the unroofed, the roofed one obviously repels water, and the unroofed wouldn't. Is it possible that, given some of the weather we have had lately, that an unroofed structure might be overwhelmed by too much water, which could bring on an anaerobic situation, whereas a roofed one, obviously, you're not having to worry about that.
That's a good point, and it's why we would like to have a roof structure. If we don't have a roof structure, we can deploy tarps, which would be the intent. To deploy tarps.
I have a question. I love composting. I do it a lot at home. I even have my own small composting machine. However, one question I have is composting the right materials. And at least the little machine I have, it does give some freedoms to compost more than your traditional backyard compost. But as an operation, how will you be able to distinguish between people's waste of things that actually should be in the compost and not? And is there a filtration system, just like with recycling, where people just throw it in, that would be considered?
So let me describe maybe the typical way that the food scraps would be incorporated into the pile. First, the highway department staff would lay out almost like a bed of wood chips and mulch. And then the totes of food waste would be dumped on there and kind of raked out. So at that point, that's when you're seeing, oh my God, there's like a plastic cup in there, or there's a beer can, and pulling out those contaminants.
What about like animal bones?
So we do have the ability with this type of composting to do meat, bones, dairy, eggshells that are often not able to be properly handled in a backyard setting because this is operating at a larger scale, and because of those blowers introducing oxygen, getting the temperature up to 140 degrees and those microbes really happy. It means that it's able to tackle things like bones. But I should note that we're not intending to accept roadkill. That is something that is composted at a lot of different facilities that are of a large scale. And that's not something that we intend to get into. Anyone else from the planning board?
I just got a question. Is there any chance of runoff reaching the landsman's kill? Because from what I understand, this is artificial fill that this is on, that was filled in 20 years ago using millings, and I I'm wondering about the filtration capacity of that substrate, and if you're gonna have adequate filtration before the runoff reaches Lansman's Kill, which could cause algal bloom, which could also result in the die-off of that algae, and that is gonna create a much bigger source of methane than what you're trying to mitigate with composting food scraps. So I want to make sure that you're not working to cross purposes, but also that our water resources are adequately protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good question. So the village is also extremely concerned about the Lansman Kill and the quality of the water. It's part of the reason that we situated the compost pad further to the south on the property, so that we're meeting all the setback requirements. But the composting actually will occur on a concrete pad. And then that concrete pad has an under drain system that has a holding tank to collect and no leachate. That leachate then would have to go to the village's wastewater plant. So it's not, the objective is to keep the compost moist but not saturated so that it doesn't generate any leachate. But if it does generate leachate due to a significant rainfall event or something similar, that there's a system that can hold that material.
Okay. And also this system, it seems like it does require constant and pretty meticulous maintenance in order to keep it going, because if it fails to be maintained on a regular schedule, it's going to go anaerobic and you're going to end up producing methane with it.
For composting to be successful, it definitely requires attention and maintenance. And I think the good news here is that the village has already shown years of experience with the wood mulch composting, and so they're already in a system of handling materials. This will be, and you've worked with the highway department facility, but this will be kind of an expansion of what they're doing currently, not entirely new, which I think is helpful.
Okay. And also, are there any kinds of monitors that are incorporated into this so that you can detect
Like smart
the presence of methane and set off some sort of alarm? It's time to go stir, or the blowers aren't working.
Have you talked with anyone about that?
Yeah, so there's a couple tools that a facility like this uses. One is to take temperature of the piles to make sure it's getting up to 140 degrees. And then another is to test the, as Brandy was mentioning, the kind of the humidity, the moisture content of the mix. And so those are two factors, the temperature and the humidity, and then also making sure there's a proper ratio of the food scraps to the brown materials, the mulch, the wood chips. And if all those things are working in balance, then you have a happy compost pile. Yeah, but it's there's no further like laboratory testing or anything like that.
And may I ask, who will be responsible for servicing and making sure all that is happening?
So we have I guess he's still fairly new. Kyle Amy is our superintendent of public works, former fire chief for 15 years. Really great guy, knows the community. If there were any complaints from the neighbors, he's willing to give his cell phone so that he can check it out right away. But Kyle oversees the highway department staff.
So the highway department staff will be doing the mixing and
Yes.
all of that?
Yeah. So we estimate, and again, we haven't done this before, so it's an estimation, about 10 hours a week of staff time, checking on the piles and incorporating the food scraps, moving the piles when they're done, doing final deliveries when it's for sale.
Any other planning board comments? All right, we have received, I'm not going to read into the record, 13 letters in support. I have a list here of the folks who have written in support of the project, and we have received one letter in opposition. Again, I'm not going to read all the names, but I will open it up now to the public for anyone who's here who wishes to comment.
Hi, I'm John Cusick, and I own the adjacent property to the highway department. First of all, I also compost, so I'm actually pro-composting and use it in my garden. And also, thank you for getting the garage light turned off. We had a 24-hour light going on in the garage that we weren't sure why. and they fixed that for us, so I appreciate that. I do have a lot of concerns about this project. One, the noise. We've been in communication, and I asked about the noise level. And the response I got was the fans are about the sound level of a bouncy house. So I know what a bouncy house is, but I don't know what a bouncy house sounds like. And I think we need to have some facts around how often the fans are going to be running. I'm under the impression that they're 24 hours a day, and how loud that is, you know, and how often, you know, is the starting and stopping even louder than when they're running. I know they're going to be enclosed, but I'm very concerned about noise. And I think that needs to be addressed. Two is traffic. A bunch of my neighbors are here. Violet Hill Road is a challenge for us, trying to get out of our driveway. No one does the speed limit, no one. And I think the concern here is that, you know, on Saturday mornings, there's going to be people coming down off of 9G, making the left to Violet Hill, and they're going to be plowing into, you know, people that want to make the left, you know, to get in to do some composting on Saturday. So traffic is a real concern for us. We've tried to have the speed limit lowered a few times without any success at all. And this is just going to result in more traffic on our road, and especially on a Saturday when the population increases up here on the weekends as it is. So it's going to be even more for us to have to deal with. Another issue is the visual, or like what we can see. And I think at the last meeting, Sean had asked, can you see it from the road? And the answer was no, it's heavily wooded. So that's not really factual, that's an opinion. I would say it's not heavily wooded. And I know I will be able to see it, I know a few of my neighbors will be able to see it, so it will not be hidden from the people that live there. When you're going 60 miles an hour down Violet Hill Road, you're not going to see it, you're going to go by it over time. But certainly the whole visual aspect of it is very concerning for us. And you had brought up the house that, you know, the road goes uphill. That is my house, and so I kind of look down on that now. The other thing is the smell. I'm a little bit confused on the smell. Like at first we were told no, and now it sounds like there will be some smell, and so I'm unclear. That could be my fault, but I'm not really sure if there is or isn't, you know, going to be a smell that we're going to have. And like the last group of people that was here about the pool house, you know, sitting outside during the summer, you know, I'm very concerned about the noise, and I'm very concerned about the smell. Another thing that came up was the potential expansion of this. We were under the impression that it was going to be just like a village, a nice little village composting project. But at the last, I don't know if it was this meeting or if it was at the town hall, the town meeting, whatever that meeting was, there were thoughts about including local restaurants, the hospital, and Tops. That to me is terrifying, because now you're going from this kind of thing that is 60 feet long or whatever it may turn out to be, to now it's not a village thing. There's a real potential for expansion there. And I don't know, once this would be approved, can you then stop it? Can you say no expansions, or can it just continue to grow and grow? And that's a real concern, that it's not going to be just, you know, something for the community. And in fact, at the last meeting, Elizabeth actually brought up, do we even know if people want this? You know, there's 13 pros, which is good, but 13 people to build a giant structure for this, to me, doesn't seem like a good use of money at this point. And lastly, for me, is again, the budget. I think there's only the first year budget. There's no planning at all for future expenses. You know, any good business has 3- and 5-year plans. There's no plan here. So we know what it's going to cost in the first year, but we have no idea what the cost is gonna be 2, 3, 5 years down the road. Inflation was 8% last year, it's over 6% this year. Now that's pretty much out of the ordinary. We don't see inflation like that, that's a more recent problem. But costs do increase over time, and there's absolutely no budget that I know of, and I could be wrong. And as a taxpayer, I have to question, so now we're asking the guys down in the yard to contribute about 10 hours a week. So question one is, are they sitting around with nothing to do, and so they have 10 extra hours to give to this? Or do we need 10 more hours, and so now we're gonna be paying overtime to the workers, which not only impacts me, but impacts everybody in this room, because then it becomes, how do you budget for that? How does the town budget for that? Will it increase, our taxes, which have been increasing rapidly? Before this goes ahead, I think there are a lot of questions that need to be addressed to get the neighbors really comfortable with what this really is and what it's really going to turn out to be.
Thank you. Yes?
Good evening. I'm just going to read off my phone. We are the Sheilas and the homeowners of the White Rays Ranch on the corner of 308 and Violet Hill. We share a property line with the village off of Violet Hill. We are the second nearest neighbors to the proposed site. We have been working on our mini orchard. We have planted 15 fruit trees in 12 months. We compost, we garden, we work hard to be pollinator friendly. We have also made our home off the grid, aside from the village water supply that we appreciate and enjoy. And we have improved our energy efficiency by 63%. Tonight, we want to share our primary concerns regarding the proposed compost site: traffic, odor, rodents, noise, and light pollution. Traffic. I fear cars will accidentally turn into our driveway. Although we have an electric fence, the new traffic may provide a safety hazard for our dog Judge. I recently reached out to the Ulster County Resource Recovery Center's Assistant Director to voice my concerns and gather some more information. He was able to confirm a few of my concerns. It's impossible to process compost without odor. It's also told that wildlife is attracted to organics more so than general mixed waste and recyclables. He was also able to confirm the occasional foul odor upon crossing the Kingston-Rhinecliff Bridge on the Kingston side was due to compost. We already have so many coyotes, raccoons, and skunks and more. I see this nightly on our wildlife cameras. Sensor lights are often utilized to deter wildlife. However, light pollution should be a major consideration as almost everyone moved to the country to see the stars at night. Noise pollution coming. I would like to better understand the decibel levels, operating hours of proposed stands, and aeration systems. Suggestion. At this time, the UCRA can accept more compost for processing. Partnership should be a consideration, perhaps suggesting an expanded pilot to better determine the participation or demand, as the site already exists and isn't too far away. Supporting renewable energy and efficient practices often requires an initial investment of resources, funds, time, and innovative thinking. We acknowledge that this concept is an amazing idea, perhaps ahead of its time, as composting organic waste is the future. We want to support this program. Without further information, unfortunately, we cannot do so. In closing, we want to thank Vanessa Bertozzi and the Compost Committee for their incredible efforts and contributions to introducing an important solution to a critical concern that is promoting renewable energy and innovations necessary to sustain the wasteful world we live in. And I have a few follow-up questions. I want to know if the DEC has learned about this project. I want to know the annual maintenance costs that, I don't know if that was discussed like a fiscal number. Not at this time, just hours, I believe, 10 hours a week. But what would the cost look like? If there could be a 5-year fiscal projection, I think that would be important for neighbors to consider. Is 7 acres suitable for this project? It seems like it's a bit large for a 7-acre parcel. Odor measuring, decibel monitoring, and generator. I don't think a portable generator, one, they're incredibly loud, they're not efficient, and I worry that it wouldn't be suitable for such a project. That's all. Thank you.
Can you send them, can you email those?
Yes, absolutely.
Just a.
Yep.
Other public comment?
Hi, I'm Karen Murphy. I live at 74 Violet Hill Road. I only became aware of this issue through a neighbor recently. I didn't know there were previous meetings, so I feel like I'm not fully prepared. Maybe you already addressed some of these issues prior to my knowledge. But my husband has a degree in chemistry and biology. He's not here to speak tonight, but he would certainly follow up with any further questions you had. He was concerned about nitrogen and phosphates leaching or running off into the Landsman Kill. And I know you had mentioned that there would be some type of container for these. However, I'm not sure that's enough. And I also feel like I've lived at my property for 32 years. My family has been there for a couple hundred years, generations, and at some point there were wells on this property. I don't know where the confirmation is with that, but that would be something to look into. 20 years ago, the driveway that is supposed to be used for this project, the county said couldn't be used. And it was my understanding that the town was using it temporarily, and then that became permanent. The site distance wasn't there. There wasn't enough site distance for it to be safely done. We had tried for 25 years, multiple times to get the speed limit lowered, and 2 summers ago, there were 3 deaths in a short amount of time, as well as other accidents, because people come 55 off of 9G, and it's just like a runway right down our hill. Nobody's gonna be able to stop for Saturday traffic, the way things are going now. So, that being said, I also have to say that first of all, I'm a little confused. If this is a village project, why is it at the town garage? Like, I'm missing that whole point. Like,
It's the village property.
It's the village garage, but it's located in the town.
okay,
So
so,
they have to come before us because the property is within our jurisdiction.
is there another site that could, if it's gonna benefit,
The old landfill.
Well,
Yeah. Okay, so,
We want to do that in the village.
so, the Village Garage people are wonderful. I'm not saying specifically about them, but the Village Garage in general has not been a good neighbor to the people on Violet Hill in the past. The light pollution was years and years of a problem. The noise, using this road that was illegal and then became legal somehow just because of use. And when I think you mentioned that the composting area gets hot, I'm wondering, will that affect the wildlife that's right next to the Landsman Kill there? So many questions that I think need to be addressed before we move forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Stefan Findel. I live on 75 Violet Hill Road. I go this road every single day, and it's true that speed is a problem. Coming down here, and you have to go down, it's about, I would think, about 6 to 8% decline, plus curve. I go about 28, 30 miles an hour, 40 is allowed, and I get tailgated every single day. We have not heard any projection as to how much traffic will increase, how many trucks there will be, how many individual cars will be bringing compost to the site. Thank you.
Cynthia Burke, and I am new to this community, and I had not planned to speak tonight. But I have been, since the 1970s, a very serious card-carrying environmentalist. And I want to tell you that we are up to here in garbage, and it's about to go over here, and it's been that way for a lot of years. This is the way of the future. Is it without difficulty? Is it without problems that need to be worked out as we go along? Absolutely, it is that. However, I noticed myself since I moved up here and started composting a couple of things. Number one, the way I purchase is much more environmentally sound. The fact that I separate my garbage from that which is recyclable to that which is compostable to that which has to be thrown away is already making me a more environmentally astute consumer. And I think that that's one of the byproducts of this kind of a project that people will see after a while, and it will make a difference. And the other thing I want to say is cleaning up the environment is labor intensive. It's job creating on so many levels, and it's the way most of our young people want to go in life. So I thank you.
Others?
My name is Susie, and I'm a resident of Rhinebeck town. And I wanted to speak to the people who have questioned the need for composting in our town. I'm the leader at the Rhinebeck Community Garden, and we have so many people from outside of the garden bringing their waste there that we can't handle it anymore. You know, it's a lot of labor on our part. And I'm also part of a small organization called Dirty Gaia, and we donated 2 large compost bins to the hamlet of Rhinecliff, which is part of Rhinebeck town. And they get filled up so quickly, and people are always asking, you know, where can I put my compost? And that's been hard to manage as well. So there is a real need for this. I'm for the project. I just wonder, I see there are some reservations. Is there an example facility that would be similar to this in capacity with the blowers that people could visit to, you know, assuage their problems with the plant? So, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Michelle Barry Edner, 41 Violet Road. And we've lived in our property for over 25 years and love Rhinebeck. I love living here and love the community and believe in compost. I feel like we are a little bit behind the 8 ball hearing about this. And so my first question is, what is the process? Because I feel like this is so underway. Today I got an email after I wrote to Elizabeth giving a whole deck of all the information that's been done about this compost site. And I'm just wondering, you know, the town garage, the village garage that's on town property, has that been the only location that has been sought after for this compost site? It is, people's backyards are right in it, and there's also, it's just, you know, as they said, the stream's right there. I'm just wondering, has there been any other location sites that have been proposed?
Yeah, Bill.
Want us to answer that?
Yes.
Sure. So it's village property that is located within the town, and the village does not own any other property in the town except for where the water plant is, and that is not a suitable place to have any sort of operation. This property has for many years had a mulch and leaf and earthquake composting.
We know that.
And so the infrastructure, et cetera, are there, so, yeah.
But this is concern of mine. As much as the people that, you know, that are maybe controlling this thing,
these people have never done this before. They're gonna be trained, okay, you have to show up at such and such a time and deal with this thing. We've had smoke waft up through our, our property. We've had noise, we've had all kinds of stuff, as Karen Murphy said, there's a lot, we've dealt with this for a long time. Who's, as good as these people are, who's overseeing this lake? That's gonna say, okay, it's time to do this now. Like, we need to get this thing mixed. We need to really, like, yeah, it sounds great, and again, we're all for composting. But, these guys have never stayed there and started raking out bones and whatever, cans and cups out of
It's a whole different
out of
job.
stuff. And it's,
And are they
it's-
getting paid differently? Are they getting paid more?
The financial aspects of a project are not something that the planning board comments
Right.
on. That is a management issue that I would be certain the village is aware of and would have to handle in their annual budgets and the training of staff. So I understand your concerns, but it is
Yeah.
somewhat not under our purview.
Just one more comment, that we've done some construction in our house, and we've had to go through a lot of hoops to get a private thing done that nobody can see, that is not affecting anybody or anything. And we have no problem doing that. We want to make everything, perfect. We don't want to screw up any wetlands or anything like that. It seems that when it comes to something like this, a lot of things get swept under the rug because this is supposed to be all for the better good. And it necessarily might be, but it might not be as well. And that's-
Well, I would point out that we've been hearing a lot from the public this evening, so I wouldn't characterize it as being swept under the rug. I think we're here to listen to everybody's comments patiently, and it all goes through the process of review. I certainly know there are village representatives here hearing this, and there's no attempt to sweep anything under the rug.
I just feel like
Process.
it's way far into the process already.
It's not very far into the process for us.
Okay, that's good.
That's a good question.
I guess that's, at the end of the day, like, what is the process now, going forward to, they presented, and if you could just go through kind of the lines of what happens about, something like this being proposed.
We, at the last meeting, accepted the application. We assigned people to make site visits. They've reported tonight, and then we've opened the public hearing, and we're hearing public comment. At the end of the public comment period this evening, we'll discuss what our next steps are. I think there's some outstanding information. I don't think we're going to be closing the public hearing this evening. So we'll continue to look for the answers to the questions that are being raised.
Great. One last question. We brought up this traffic situation that we all know very well, and I'm sure people that drive down our road must feel it too. And I'm not sure it is a village property or if they've thought of putting an entrance on 308 and not on Violet Hill Road. That in itself is, just to something.
Yeah, we have absolutely no enforcement for speeding. There's never been, speeding, even a little monitor up or anything. Police don't show up there, the sheriff doesn't show up there. So people speed at will. They know no one's there. There's never police monitoring. But I'm just saying that's how dangerous it is on Violet Hill. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One other thing. The garage has never really had any buffers, so of trees or anything like that, it's just been an eyesore. So that's another question I have with this new compost situation, if anything would be addressed.
Ruben, you have a CAB report, as you wish to comment on that?
Hi, Reuben Liebhaber, Conservation Advisory Board. Many of the general findings that we made have been addressed in terms of board comments or comments from the audience here. I would say that the Conservation Advisory Board does support the initiative as a positive environmental undertaking by the village.
Thank you. Jim, can you summarize here?
Next steps, and where we go?
Yes, please.
So, this is the first public hearing. Sometimes they close the first night, sometimes they don't. We've heard a lot of comments, we have a number of questions. We have not gotten approval from County Highway, which I do think is a big one. The ability to access the site, the way it's being proposed is from County Highway. So I think typically the board would wait to hear from the county before we necessarily move forward, just because without that access point, you can't get into it the way it's proposed, though it could potentially be a condition. But from this point, there's a draft approval resolution for the board if they want to consider it tonight. Otherwise, let's open it up for discussion on the next steps. I do think there's some information we need to obtain.
And the easement is not complete.
It's not finalized, that's right.
Planning board members?
Do we need a traffic study or somewhere near what's going on with traffic?
Well, I think that's part of the reason we're waiting to hear.
For something like this, I'd probably typically rely on the county and see what they say first. It is their road. They have jurisdiction over this, just like the DOT would have jurisdiction if we looked on the state road. Given the use and intensity, I would kind of leave it, excuse me, to them to see what they come up with preliminarily. They may request a traffic study. But certainly if that's something you want to ask for, you do have the purview to do that, it's fine.
Does anyone feel ready to vote on the resolution this evening, or do you feel there's too much outstanding information?
I think there's more we need to know, and I have to admit, I'm particularly sensitive to the traffic situation coming down the hill, turning, curving, to then go into this facility from where I live. And I come on Whitesville Road every day because I come in and get my newspaper and my bagel. And the gentleman who said that made a remark about he's going about 20, 25 miles an hour. And people are always on my butt too. And you hit the brake hard and get hit. It really is a serious concern. Rhinebeck isn't what it was 40 years ago. The population has grown. We have different people who are not used to our small rural roads. They're used to more metropolitan type of, like the Route 9s, the 308s, things like that. And I think it does handicap us sometimes in some of the things that we've done, because our roads are scenic, we love it, and they're nice, but it can be a problem because the generation of traffic goes beyond really what can be safely done on the road. This is a wonderful project. I think composting is a terrific idea, but I would hate to have people get hurt because people coming down the hill to zip into the village run into people trying to stop to drop off their compost on the weekend. I can see that happen. And that would be a very undesirable consequence from this.
You often also have to wait quite a while to take a left off 101 onto 308.
But that's true too.
So there's a lot of traffic on the 308.
It does
So there could be a
back
backup of people, waiting to get out there.
Yeah, and I'll echo what you're saying about the traffic. I drive by there every week on my way to Boy Scouts, and I'm teaching my son to drive, so sometimes he's at the wheel. And it's a pretty difficult to navigate hairpin turn, and there's a lot of speed involved, and people are not always so patient with people who want to drive the actual speed limit. Also, I think it's noteworthy that this does require people to drive to drop off their table scraps, and presumably they're going to be using some fossil fuels to get there. And it would make, I think, a lot more environmental sense if we had something that people could walk to in the village, or people could bicycle to for a drop-off point. So, yeah, but the traffic, having people drive into Violet Hill, I think invites the question of how many people is it going to be. A lot of people from the village here, I rode my bike. I hope everyone walked or didn't drive from the village to the town hall, because that's, we need to be more conscious of the fact that we need to reduce our consumption. I think that's a really important thing. So I don't want the implementation of this plan, which is very good on the face of it, to contradict that goal of creating a more walkable and less consumptive community.
Just on the drop-off note, because and I'd love for you guys to touch on this again, it's my recollection that there's, by the police station, one at Rhinecliff, one by the farmer's market. Would it be possible, while maintaining those drop-offs in the village, for Craig's point, walkability, easier access, less traffic concern, to also have the other drop-off, rather than coming into Violet Hill on 308, and so there is no drop-off for the public off Violet Hill, even though it doesn't solve the plant being there, but what if there was no public access off Violet Hill?
And also, I note that there is a bridge on the plan that connects the entry. What's the condition of that bridge?
But conceptually, the other
Maybe a
material has
wheelbarrow
to be
or a
included.
hand truck? Okay.
I guess we can say more to talk about.
So then I guess I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing. A second, and when it's due? May 1st? I have a motion, I have a second, all those in favor? Opposed?
I do.
I think it's unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your comments, thank you for your patience, thanks for your support.
No, just walk up. Just walk up. Are you actually closing the public comment period for tonight?
No, continue the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We continue, but we're not tonight.
That's what I said, are you closing it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant were we closing it in general? Is it something that is new, that has not been discussed?
Yeah, I think I can address some of the concerns and.
Are you answering the concerns?
I'm speaking from experience of a successful setup like this, and also,
I guess I would encourage you to come to the May 1st meeting that we adjourned to, because we're going to be continuing this, so it's probably more important that you do it then.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, last up this evening, we have two more on the agenda, but you'll note that the Rock Ledge property again has to continue. So last up this evening is Alexander Road, and the site plan review. Construction of single family dwelling and houses.
Five wells over there, they're going to park. So they're going to take a right. Just got to run with that rock.
All right, we're gonna try and put this on our next, if I could ask those who are leaving to do so expeditiously, so we can move along. Folks, we're gonna ask you to get the conversation outside so we can move ahead with Alexander Road's application. Thank you very much.
I think tonight should be pretty
Okay, buddy. See you later.
procedural and quick, I hope. I am here with no architects because we have no new visual submissions for you this evening. Only my partner Ryan, who's been here a few times but never introduced him.
I've met anybody,
His BARD MFA was what got us to this area in the first place.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So one update on the septic is that we did get successful perk tests that were witnessed by the county to make the smaller, simpler type 1 system a thing. The civil engineer drawings were ready for submission to this meeting, but after a chat with Gretchen, we decided it's better to batch everything together with CPL. The landscape architect is still working through new freedom that he gets from a little bit of extra room to work with from the smaller septic footprint. For example, a bit more graceful way of dealing with rainwater running down the driveway, which formerly had a hardscape outlet for its collection. And we think now with the septic pulled back a little bit, there's room. We were sending the water down here, and then those annotations were hardscape to spread it before it went into this drainage. And we think now there's room to go under the driveway and then have a nice long flat for the water to get calm and slow and gentle before, in a less erosively interesting way, it can dribble out into this drainage, which is also the bigger one. So as those details are then one coherent package, as soon as that looks like that, we'll send that to you all in CBL. And then the main ask we have for you tonight is in the process of saying, oh wow, we think it's finally time to start looking for loose ends as opposed to new stuff. We noticed in the zoning resolution, there was a mention of a special use permit that we have not been applying for as part of this whole process, and said ruh-roh. I called Gretchen, who, as I understand it, has talked to Jim, and also Brian Tam agreed, yes, you, by virtue of being within 1,000 feet of the Hudson, and in the LCS district, whatever that stands for, that this whole time we should have been like jointly doing the special use permit and site plan approval. And we went and looked, and I think basically what happened is we had some letters that are, these are things you need, and we interpreted them as these are everything you need letters, and they were some things you need letters. Anyway, as I understand it, Jim's suggestion back to Gretchen, back to me, we submitted the application for the special use permit stuff. So the ask tonight is for that, which as I understand it from the code looks pretty clear when I went and read it, like you gotta go through the process. It wants us to join the two processes, but the special use permits still want you to have a meeting where you vote to put it on the docket for next meeting and so forth. So my ask was if the public hearing can be continued for the existing site plan application, and if the first public hearing of the special use permit application can be the next meeting, at which it's all then re-merged, as my understanding is like encouraged by the code.
So, for whatever reason, the special use permit wasn't submitted, we didn't catch it, but it is required to be within the distance. All that happens really is that this happens sometimes and periodically with submissions, we ask for more information, other things. This will just now run concurrently with your project. Since you have submitted the special use permit, I think this project has undergone quite a bit of scrutiny and review. I don't think that the submission of the special use permit is going to change anything we've done to this point. It won't impact anything per se. I'll take a look at the criteria, but like I say, it had been looked at in quite a bit of detail with the town engineering, which is something that will sometimes often happen with a special use permit. It may not happen with a site plan. It's an additional level of review, more detail, and other criteria, but I don't think it's going to change much of anything to be honest. So essentially, we just accept it. It's, you know, as long as the planning board's okay with it, we continue moving forward.
Do we have to vote to accept it?
I don't think you have to vote. We've had this stuff before, but it's up to you if you want to. Yeah.
Is it the same, it's just you're adding that piece?
Yeah, we just
By consensus, can we agree that we'll just move ahead with this and accept it, move
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah.
I don't think we need to vote, but I think you've got consensus and that's the direction we're going.
Okay. And then,
It's not going to change the public meeting schedule or anything.
right, okay, great. And then I may as well confirm our next steps, which we were planning, finish the follow through of how the landscape plan gets to take advantage of the septic. And then because, you know, this has been going since August or something, and even we probably don't remember what are all of the questions and answers along the way. So we were planning to kind of write, you know, here have been all of the things, here have been the answers, here is what we thought, if there was potentially still an open issue, you know, what we thought the answers submitted have been, and so forth. As we pulled that together, is there anything in particular that was still open issue on your all minds to make sure that it's addressed in our next submission, other than, of course, the whole septic thing, which we believe is now going to be the simpler type one?
Yeah, I mean, I know one of my concerns was if that field were to grow, what would the impact be on the embankment? And it's good to hear that it's not growing. It's quite the opposite. You did mention the change in the stormwater practice, and I'd be curious to find out if that involves an installation of any riprap or any kind of soil retention device to prevent erosion on that side, which
At
would
the-
be the, is that the north or the
This is
south?
the
or-
south side.
The south side, yeah.
I will ask, honestly, I don't know. There was some here, and I think
Okay.
there gets to be less because it's flattened out, but offhand, actually, I don't know. So I'll make sure that that's clear in our next edition.
And that's the side of the house that's visible from the Wilderstein trails that were some concern about the visual impact of that. So if that is a little more impactful, we should know about it.
Let's make sure that there's not some gross concrete apron, and that if there has to be some hardscape outlet, that it's stone we would want to build a wall out of or something. Yes, totally fair point. Okay.
Anyone else?
Actually, I was going to suggest the same thing. If you're moving it to that side, that seems to be the sensitive visualization side of the property, so I'd just be careful going that route. I understand what you're trying to do, but it just introduces a new dynamic and discussion point. Visualization.
My next call with landscape architect, I'll get as much detail as I can, and if I think there's anything to worry about, I'll do something about it. If it's, look, this is an outlet of a pipe this big and it'll have some stone under it or something, then we'll put on the plans, whatever, nice local stone, something lined, probably stone lined concrete, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to get out of my skis on the details. So would we, and all of these discussions end in your forthcoming schedule. Do you know if you're able to have us on for, this is April, the May 1st one?
Well, I think we're all right with that. So I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to May 1st.
And to integrate into it the special use permit.
And to integrate into it the special use permit.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you.
Last up, I believe we've already approved the continuation for Rockledge.
This one we didn't.
Rockledge, this is another continuation, not the one from last month. Okay, well, then I would ask for a motion to continue Rockledge to the May 1st meeting.
I'm recused.
And was recused, a motion by Denise, a second by Michael, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? I would just remind you, I think I forwarded it to you, but we are scheduled for 5 o'clock at our next meeting with Michael Zarin. So he did indicate that they would send out an agenda, and we'll be meeting. It's not clear to me yet whether HAPAC will be there or not. They're not going to be there. Okay, so that's, I guess that's it. So,
Can I ask a logistical question? When we keep pushing out spiles, right? Like they keep
okay,
getting.
let me motion to close,
Okay, fine.
to adjourn the meeting, and then we'll
Okay,
give your
thank you.
procedural. So can I have a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Second.
Motion by Craig, second by Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay.